Welcome to Animal X, and a horror story from days gone by. In 18th century France, during a 3-year period, almost 300 people were killed and eaten by a creature with a terrifying appetite for human flesh. What it was remains a mystery to this day.
It was as big as a cow and claws the size of a man's hand.
Her father went looking for her and found the gruesome remains.
It could have been an animal, could have been a serial killer.
An animal of unparalleled ferocity, or a killer in wolf's clothing. Join us as we unravel the mystery of the Beast of Gevaudan. There are stranger things in heaven and earth, and you're about to see one of them.
Just be careful.
The Beast of Gevaudan's reign of terror began on a June evening in 1764. A peasant girl was tending her herd of cattle when a terrifying creature bounded at her from the forest. But before its deadly fangs could get at her throat, her herd charged straight at it, sending it back into the woods. Back in the village, the terrified shepherdess offered a strange account of the attacker. She said it was the size of a cow and covered with red fur. It supposedly had a white stripe on its chest and a long tail with a tuft of fur at the end. A puzzling description, for sure. But whatever it was, the predator was for real. But was it a monster or a murderer? The Animal X Natural Mystery Unit is in France to explore a 250-year-old mystery. Such a beautiful country. Such a dark past. Dan and Natalie are on their way to the southern part of the country, to the Gevudan region, beast territory.
The Beast of Gevaudan is no myth. Records of the day show that something was responsible for the horrific deaths of dozens of people.
Not long after that first attack, dead bodies started showing up in the hills of Gevudan. The beast seemed to have a taste for women and children, killing them in a variety of ways. But the end result was always the same. Its victims all had brutal bite marks around the head and neck. Some had their heads ripped off. It gobbled up their entrails and left the rest of their bodies for other wild animals to eat. No wonder the locals were terrified.
This is the area where the beast actually killed some of its victims.
And some of the beast victims were shepherds and shepherdesses.
You can imagine if they knew the beast was in the area, they would have hidden away in little places like this, trying to escape the beast.
The story of Marie Jean Vallet is one of the most famous regarding the beast. Her and her sister were on their way to a neighbouring farm when they were attacked. Marie managed to fight off the beast with a lance, stabbing it in the chest. It's then said that the beast put its paw up to its chest before running off. Memorials like these are now the only reminder of the terror that once gripped the countryside.
Keep in mind, my darlings, this was all happening at a tumultuous time in French history. Much of the country was starving. The peasants loathed King Louis XV and were leaving the church in droves. Whispers of revolution were in the air. As the killings increased, the church called the carnage the work of God, with the hope of bringing people back to the fold. Oh, it worked. Soon the pews were packed with villagers pleading for deliverance from the beast. Unfortunately, their prayers went unanswered. The beast continued its rampage And still, no one knew exactly what kind of creature was hunting them. We've got witness descriptions. But what kind of animal fits the bill? Based on the beast's MO, let's take a look at the suspects. First, the lion, or at least a big cat. Back in the 1700s, there were no native lions in France. King Louis XV kept a zoo. And it was fashionable for him and aristocrats to import exotic animals from Africa or Asia. But there are no records of any of these animals escaping. The same with panthers and cheetahs. Fabulous hunters and as swift as the wind. But again, my darlings, there were none of these big cats in Europe. And no record of anything like that having escaped. And anyway, their mouths were too small to do the kind of damage inflicted by the beast. And what's more, the witness accounts don't describe the beast as a cat. If not a feline, how about a canine? A pack of domestic dogs? Again, not according to the witnesses. How about African hunting dogs? Also known as painted dogs. Well, these guys are ferocious and relentless hunters. But they only hunt in packs. Eyewitnesses describe just a single huge beast. Which, my darlings, brings us to our prime suspects. A wolf or a hyena. Now we're getting closer. Our first prime suspect, the hyena. Though not a native of France, the hyena was a popular import with some of the rich folk. And this animal could certainly inflict the kind of injuries the beast did. Then there's the wolf. Number one just about on everyone's suspect list. Why? Because in the 1700s, wolves were abundant in the area. They lived in the forest and were a menace to the villagers, hunting and killing their sheep. In fact, it's known that the local peasants would have killed around 70 wolves each year, protecting their flocks. So let's start with the wolf and see if he, as one of the legends says, is the guilty party. Nat and Dan are on their way to question some of the victims' descendants.
Louise Soulier is buried here in this ancient graveyard, along with 6 other victims of the beast. Louise was a young shepherdess who tended her flock on these hillsides until she fell prey to the beast. 250 years later, her descendant Guy Soulier still lives in Gevudan.
So, monsieur, your ancestor was killed by the beast, and she is buried here. What happened?
Louise was looking after her herds when the beast attacked her and ripped her chest open. When she didn't come home that night, her father went looking for her and found the gruesome remains.
What do you think the Beast of Gevaudan was?
I believe it was a wolf.
Many people shared that belief, but how much credence is there in that theory? It's true that at the time of the killings, hundreds of wolves lurked in the Gevudan region. They, like the people of the region, would have been hungry and competing for food.
As a hunter, the wolf is a cunning sneak-up-and-get-your predator. What's more, wolves kill their prey by first going for the throat and shaking it violently. If the wolf doesn't break the victim's neck, then it will rip the victim's throat out. In the case of a small victim, the head could be bitten off completely. Then the wolf leisurely tears into the victim's body and eats the entrails. I'm sending Daniel and Natalie to the French Alps to see if a lone wolf could really have done this kind of damage to so many people.
Can you believe we're in the French Alps?
No, they're amazing, aren't they? Stunning.
Absolutely spectacular.
Who are you seeing here?
I'm going to be chatting to an official about the government's stance on wolves in France. And you're actually going to go up into the mountains.
Yep, going to go talk to a farmer, Jean-Pierre Geoffrey. He's had a lot of sheep taken and stock kills from wolves coming over the border from Italy across the mountains. So it'll be interesting talking to him.
Yeah, definitely.
In the centuries since the killings, wolves have gradually disappeared from France. But in the mid-1990s, Italy began releasing them back into the wild. And since wolves know no boundaries, many of them cross the Alps into France. Jean-Pierre Geoffrey has been keeping sheep on these hills for decades. But since the wolves' return, his livelihood is under attack.
Before, the sheep used to roam freely in the mountain. They didn't need really to be kept. Now, we have to look after them in this park at night. I have to look after them 24 hours out of 24. And that means 8 people have to be paid to do a job that took only 1 or 2.
And what about you personally? How many sheep have you lost?
The first time the wolf attacked was in 1998. Since then, I have lost more than 100 sheep.
Would you like to have the laws changed so farmers would be able to shoot the wolves?
Of course, I would like the law to be changed. I don't have anything against the wolf. I've got something against the beast that's eating my sheep. I don't want to kill all the wolves, but they must be removed from the same area where we breed sheep.
Do you think it's possible that the wolves that are harassing your sheep today could become or turn into modern-day beasts of Gevaudan?
Of course I'm afraid, especially at night, or when it's foggy. The wolves could sneak up on me and kill me before I know it. That's why I always carry a weapon. But more scary than that, I've got kids around, and they don't have weapons. So I'm afraid that one day the wolves may attack my children.
We're in the French Alps, following the trail of a beast that some 250 years ago killed as many as 300 people. The beast was thought to be a wolf. Today, French farmers are afraid of another reign of terror because the wolves are back. There's fear in these hills, but is it justified? Would these wolves really attack people? Using his stealth cameras, Daniel is setting up a surveillance operation to see what the wolves are up to.
What we're going to do is stake out this pen behind me, which the sheep have been run into, to protect them at night time from the wolves. The fence is electrified, so they're all nice and safe in there at night time. Well, hopefully anyway. Now, there's 3 ways we're going to cover this pen. On the top ridge, which is the high ground, the wolves will come over the hill and come onto the sheep from the high ground. We're going to put these camera traps, which are self-activating. If anything moves in front of the sensor, bang, they'll turn on and start recording of their own will. We're going to cover the pen from 2 other directions as well. I want to be midway up a pole, just halfway in the pen, with an infrared camera and infrared spotlight, so I can sit there in complete darkness, spotting away. The wolves won't be aware of anything, neither will the sheep. Also rigged up this little headset camera, which we're going to get Jean-Pierre to wear, so when he's out and about doing his normal thing in the pen, we'll be able to see from his point of view, and if he runs into anything, it'll be recorded and we'll see it as well. Now, over the last 25 days, he's bumped into wolves on 23 occasions, so there's a fairly good chance we're going to see something tonight.
So we found a perfect little spot here for the camera trap. It's in a little hollow halfway up the hill overlooking the pen. Now this is the last bit before the pen where the wolves can come in and actually see down. So we're going to leave the camera trap here. Sets off automatically like that. And with a bit of luck we'll catch some wolves. It's freezing on the mountainside. Not a nice place to be night after night, protecting your flock from wolves. I can kind of understand how Jean-Pierre feels. These images, shot from his head cam, of those eyes reflecting up there on the hill, are very disconcerting. Okay, well we know the wolves are definitely here. These sheep are so skittish, they're jumping everywhere. Every 10 minutes we'll have a bit of a stampede around the pen. It's really interesting. I went up to have a look and check the camera trap. Hadn't gone off yet. But while I was up there, something growled and then took off over the hill again. So the wolves are definitely up there, but they're really shy. Yeah, but they're here though, definitely.
Despite spending a long, treacherous night in the mountains, nothing showed on Dan's stealth cameras. The wolves may have picked up his scent near the camera traps and steered clear. Interesting. The human presence didn't tempt them to attack. It drove them away.
There's obviously a conflict with sheep and wolves living together. So I guess one of the ways to overcome that would be to have a zoning system where the wolves could have a certain area and people don't take their sheep into those areas to graze. And that would probably, you know, if the wolves have enough prey items in those areas, then they probably wouldn't come into the areas where there's sheep and agriculture, and that way, you know, they can both live in harmony.
Nice thought, Daniel. Especially as Natalie is about to find out the French government says the wolf is here to stay. It's frightening knowing the wolves are out there watching. But does this prime suspect really have the makings of a bloody killer? Nat's determined to find out. She's going to talk to Bertrand Petroletti, a wolf expert working with the French government.
Not everyone in France is against the wolf. In fact, since it began moving back into the country, the government has decided to give it full protection under the law. So if the wolves are attacking all these sheep, do you think that they could be dangerous to humans at all? I don't know of any fatal wolf attacks on humans. Do you?
No, highly unlikely. In fact, totally unlikely. A wolf that is healthy, that does not have rabies, will never attack a human because wolves are afraid of humans and they've grown to be shy of them. There's no examples of attacks, and frankly, it just exists in people's fantasies. There's no evidence.
So why would the wolf be falsely accused?
The wolf was considered to be the enemy of man, and on a religious front, it was also thought to be the devil. The wolf is an extremely intelligent animal, very opportunistic, and therefore there was a kind of similarity between man's intelligence and the wolf's.
So it's no wonder that back in the days of the Beast, the wolf became the prime suspect. As I said, it was a tumultuous time. Hysteria over the killing swept through southern France. Revolution seemed more imminent. King Louis, fearing for his throne, put a huge price on the beast's head. Wanted dead or alive. When that didn't work, he sent his master of arms, Francois Antoine, to kill the beast once and for all. When Francois Antoine bagged a large wolf, the king proclaimed a victory amidst much public celebration. But the calm didn't last for long. After the king declared mission accomplished, the killing started again. Had the wolf been framed? I want Daniel and Natalie to get a closer look at these creatures accused of the killings. I'm sending them to the Gevudan Wolf Park right in the center of Beast territory.
This sanctuary has been in existence for more than 40 years and was started by a former journalist, Gerard Menatori. Menatori, also a conservationist, fell in love with wolves while covering a story in Poland. He founded this park to protect them. Today, his daughter Anne Menatori runs the place.
In my opinion, and the opinion of others wolf experts, the beast was not a wolf. I have known the wolves for a long time, and I know that the wolf doesn't approach people in the wild. A wolf won't get closer to a person than about 200 yards. Here at the park, where wolves are used to people, they come closer, but in those days, they certainly weren't used to people.
So the wolf is innocent. It couldn't have killed that many people in that short amount of time.
Not in 3 years, not in 10 years, and not in 100 years could a wolf have done those killings. The wolf may have been seen eating the dead bodies that were lying around. And keep in mind that the autopsies of the day were very quick, not like today. And so they would have looked at the bodies of the victim and said, "Oh yes, the wolf has eaten it. The wolf must have killed it."
Let's see if Daniel and Natalie have drawn the same conclusion.
I'm 100% certain that the beast was not a wolf.
How about you, Daniel? Do you think the wolf is to blame? Or is it a scapegoat?
Yeah, I think it's a snowball effect. Once something starts and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until there's too much mist to actually see what the truth really was originally. It's the same story played out all over the world, wherever it is. If it's in the ocean, it's sharks. If it's in Australia, it's dingoes. If it's anywhere, it's the top primary predator that always gets it first. They're the first ones to be blamed.
So what do you think the beast was?
I think it was a combination of things. I don't think it was wolves or a wolf. You've seen these guys, you see how shy they are of humans. Could have been a hybrid, but then when it was examined, why didn't they identify it as a hybrid? They would have known what a hybrid was. What do you think?
I agree with you in that I think it was a combination of things. Some of the descriptions that we've heard of the beast, its long hair, its calf-like snout, its pointed ears, its long, very long tail, the size of it, to me it seems more plausible that it's a wolf-dog cross. I 100% believe it was not a wolf. The wolf is the innocent victim here. They're fearful of humans and they're just not capable of killing in that way. But I believe that there had to be humans behind the beast. There is no way an animal or animals would have that lust for human blood.
To be honest, if it was a wild animal, why would it be attacking shepherds rather than the sheep? The sheep are going to put up less fight and there's less risk of injury. So it doesn't really make sense unless it was an animal trained up to attack people by another person.
So, my darlings, the wolf, like Roger Rabbit, had been framed. After the king's master-at-arms slayed the big wolf, the killings went on for more than a year. Some tallies had it up to nearly 300 victims. Then a man named Jean Chastel joined the fray. Chastel was the local wolf hunter. While most of the peasants used poison baits to kill the wolves, Chastel was one of the few to own a gun, a flintlock. He also bred and trained wolfhounds, and with his gun and dogs, he regularly tracked down and killed troublesome wolves. When the king's man failed to stop the killings, Chastel's neighbours implored him to help kill the beast.
At 10:15 in the morning on the 19th of June 1767, 12 huntsmen and their dogs forced the beast into this clearing. Jean Chastel lay in wait, reading a prayer book. By his side, a gun and 2 bullets. They'd been blessed. The creature stopped in front of him. He fired just once, piercing the animal through the throat. The Beast of Gevaudan lay dead.
Natalie has tracked down a descendant of Jean Chastel, the second beast slayer. His great-great-great-granddaughter, 92-year-old Madame Denise Royer.
He was a very good hunter. He had an excellent reputation. He was a farmer and a family man.
Do you know what Jean Chastel was like as a person? Did your grandmother tell you anything about his character?
Our grandmother said he was a courageous man, a Roman Catholic and very religious, and she considered him as a man who would do what he had to do.
Do you consider him a hero?
No, I don't think he's a hero. I think he did his job and became a hero after.
So Jean Chastel became a hero when the killing stopped. But what kind of animal did he kill? There's strong evidence that he may have shot the number 2 suspect on our list, the hyena. Listen to this. French Alps, a curator at the Museum of Natural History in Paris, has some evidence supporting this theory. So I'm sending Dan and Nat to Paris to investigate. Gay Paris. The Eiffel Tower, the Champs-Élysées, the Arc de Triomphe. A magnificent city. Natalie is inside the Museum of Natural History talking to the curator, Franz Julien. Monsieur Julien thinks the hyena, not the wolf, was responsible for the killing spree.
Why do you think the hyena could have been Beast of Gevaudan?
I think the hyena was a Beast of Gevaudan, because when I look at all the descriptions of the injuries of the victims, it looks similar to those a hyena may inflict. Secondly, when we see the beast that Jean Chastel killed, the second animal, he drew a picture of it and it looks like a hyena.
This is no wolf. And based on what we know of the victim's injuries, it killed like a hyena too. And then there was the museum guidebook he found from 1819. In the section about the museum's hyena, it describes the animal as looking just like the Beast of Gevaudan.
So this little book is basically stating that the Beast of Gevaudan was a hyena.
The booklet is supporting evidence that the hyena was the Beast of Gevaudan, just like the drawing.
The book goes on to describe the hyena's nature, that it is very aggressive and attacks vulnerable victims such as small children.
Would this be normal behaviour for a hyena?
Hyenas attack always something that is vulnerable. Someone who is sleeping, or maybe a little kid.
This is quite remarkable, a hyena. I mean, there were no hyenas in France at the time. Where did they come from?
It's true. There weren't any wild hyenas in France. But during that period, it was fashionable for the aristocracy, for the rich people, to import exotic wild animals from Africa.
Well, I had a good chat with Franz Julien. And you know how I was very sceptical about the whole hyena theory, but now kind of It's a strong possibility now. Well, Franz Julian showed me a drawing made by Jean Chastel after he shot the second beast, and it looked exactly like a striped hyena. I mean, why would he draw a striped hyena if it wasn't? It can't just be a coincidence. Certainly the hyena theory is sounding a lot stronger to me.
The hyena theory is convincing, but there's a problem. Our research indicates that out of the 4 types of hyena, only one actually hunts. The spotted hyena. And none of the witnesses described the beast as having spots. The striped hyena is a scavenger, so the beast's identity is still a mystery. Maybe it was a wolf, disguised as a hyena. A wolf in hyena's clothing. Or maybe something even more bizarre. Daniel's in Sorgue in the heart of beast territory at the Museum Fantastique, which is dedicated to the beast.
There are literally dozens of theories regarding the Beast of Gevaudan, and Jean Richard, creator of the Musée Fantastique, has heard just about all of them. You mentioned there were 15, 20 other theories about the Beast of Gevaudan. What are some of those?
It could have been an animal, could have been a serial killer, could have been a sadist, it could have been a crossbreed. A hybrid, some even talk about an animal that was brought in from Africa. It could have been a werewolf, but really, we don't know up to this day what that beast was. My job is to keep the story on the Beast of Gevaudan a mystery. So, as soon as somebody comes up with a new theory, I'll find something that contradicts it, and that doesn't solve the mystery.
Wolves are too timid to go after humans, but a domesticated wolf-dog cross could be trained to kill, if a human was behind it. There's many theories. There's a wolf, there's a dog, there's the church, there's a devil, there's an alien. Do you know, personally, if any of these are true, and would you tell us?
No. Interesting. But it takes us no closer to solving the mystery. However, he did touch upon one possibility. You may have picked up on it. A serial killer. A serial killer who used a vicious animal as his weapon. It's a shocking theory. But is there any proof? I'm sending Dan and Nat to meet some new players in this drama. A predator expert, an historian, and a criminal profiler. Maybe they can help us resolve whether the Beast of Gevaudan was an animal, a human, or something in between. While Daniel and Natalie head off to the next location, let's recap. In Gevaudan, France, some 250 years ago, over a period of 3 years, up to 300 people were thought to have died a terrible death, ripped apart by some huge beast. The King of France sent his marksman to kill the beast. A large wolf was shot, and the killing stopped. Not for long. Some 6 months later, the killing started again. The peasants of the region implored a local wolf hunter to help. He was successful, and this time, the killing stopped. But what the beast was, nobody seemed to know. Daniel and Natalie are about to meet an historian, Derek Brockes, who has been studying the Beast of Gevaudan for many years.
So after all the research that you've done, what do you think the beast was?
Well, I can only answer you honestly. I've been studying it for some 15 years now, and I honestly don't know. I don't think a hybrid, an escaped hyena, explains it. It was too clever, it killed over too great distances, it went on for too long, It's too well documented to have been something obvious. But I do think that it was something exceptional.
Like what?
I think the situation is summed up by Monsieur Denneval, who was the greatest wolf hunter in France. He'd killed 1,200 wolves, and he was recognized by the king as being the man in France on wolves. He was sent to the Gevudan with his son. He was provided with the best hounds in France. He was provided with thousands of people to beat the mountains, and he searched for the wolf for months. He left the Gevudan, and his words were, "La bête is no wolf." And that sums it up.
So if La Bête, or the beast, was not a wolf, then what?
You had various French perverted aristocrats who indulged in horrible experiments. Who knows what could arise from it?
Perhaps zoologist Michel Louis can answer that question. He runs the Amneville Zoo, where he specializes in predators like wolves and big cats, and has been investigating the beast story for some time. I've sent Daniel to his zoo to check out his take on the beast.
The one fact that stands out was the beast was not scared of humans, which is completely abnormal for a wild animal. Therefore, it was an animal that was brought up by humans and then trained to kill.
Michel Louis says the Beast of Gevaudan showed typical characteristics of the wolf and the dog. A telltale white mark on the chest and a fluffy tail are the signature of wolf-dog hybrids, as is the aggression. In fact, Michel Louis was even more specific. He told us the beast's father was a wolf and the mother was a dog. And this type of crossbreed will have the cunning of a wolf and the trainability of a dog. This one, he theorizes, was trained to kill. So, we've now established that the Beast of Gevaudan wasn't a wolf or a hyena, but most likely a wolf-dog cross. Michel Louis, who has studied this mystery for 15 years, will now reveal the name of the alleged beast master.
I believe the person behind the whole affair was an aristocrat, the powerful Count Jean-François Charles de Molette de Morangies.
French legend tells us that the Count of Morangies was a rich, depraved sadist and a perverted fiend who was also against the king. It also says that the Count may have used Jean Chastel's skill with wolfhounds to breed and train the beast. He also thinks that Jean Chastel's son, Antoine, was involved in the killings.
Jean Chastel was one of the best hunters of the region and was one of the only people to have a gun, which was very rare at the time. So if he wanted, he could have killed the beast at any time. Everything in the analysis of the beast story shows the culpability of the Chastels. It's very easy to make the case against the Chastels, but not so for the Count of Morangies.
So where does Michel Louis get his information? In the late 1700s, during the time of the beast's attack, the official form of investigation was called the procès-verbal. A witness to a crime would tell their story to a town official, such as a doctor or a priest. The town official wrote out the witness's account, which then became part of the historical record. Michel Louis bases his research on these accounts. But how can we be sure that the Beast of Gevaudan was a murderer, not a monster? Natalie has tracked down Lorraine Montet, an investigator who studied criminology at the Paris University and works with the French police as a criminal profiler.
Using FBI methodology, Monsieur Montet has investigated all the facts. He has reviewed the archive material and has come to the same conclusion as predator expert Michel Louis, that the beast was likely part of a criminal conspiracy to terrorise and murder hundreds of people. Based on his analysis of the evidence, he's come to some shocking conclusions about the killing spree. He says these men were possibly the worst serial killers in France, if not the world.
I believe this is the very first crime in French history where an organized crime team has been involved in this type of terrorizing and murder.
According to our profiler, there were 4 suspects.
First, there is the beast, a mix between a dog and a wolf. Secondly, there is a person who trained the beast, Antoine Chastel. He has the mind of a serial killer. Thirdly, Jean Chastel, his father, and the hunter who killed the second beast. And fourthly, the ringleader, the Count of Moranges, who also wanted to overthrow the King of France. The story happens when the king is in a precarious position. France was crippled by corruption and mismanagement, and she had just lost a 7-year war with Britain. There is hunger in the country, and the people of the region, particularly the women and children, are refusing to work in the fields for fear of the beast. Revolution was in the air.
So with revolution in the air, the Count saw his opportunity and put his sadistic plot into motion. But how can we be sure that Antoine Chastel and his father were involved? A map of the killings supports the detective's bizarre and disturbing theory.
So what we can see with this map is that there are 6 different killing zones.
If we take a look at Zone 4, we can see that all the murders are very organised, all following a straight line. A wild beast wouldn't do that. Zone 6 is where the beast remained the longest and where the most murders occurred.
And guess who lived there?
Indeed, the Chastel family lived there, and the beast that Jean Chastel killed was killed right next to the house. What we know is that the organized serial killer always starts his action far away from his home and works his way back to where he lives.
So the Beast of Gevaudan may have been a wolf-dog cross, bred by Jean Chastel and his son Antoine. The theory goes that the fiendish Count of Moranges, controlling Jean and Antoine Chastel and their beast as part of a plot to overthrow King Louis XV. Laurent Montet claims these 3 men were serial killers, and typical of serial killers, they did most of their killing in their own backyard.
So Laurent, is the case closed? Can you say, without a doubt, that Antoine and the Count were the beasts of Gevaudan?
No, even with reliable proof, we cannot be certain of everything.
Although we've unearthed some dark secrets buried some 250 years ago, the Beast of Gevaudan and its bloodthirsty killing spree remains a mystery. Would you agree, Daniel?
No, it's a fascinating story. The more we delve into it, the more that we want to find out. You answer one question, you come up with another one. I don't think we'll ever find out exactly what it was. One thing for sure is that it definitely wasn't a wolf.
What about you, Natalie?
Well, I think one thing that we've been able to solve in this mystery is that the wolf is completely innocent. There is no way a wolf or even a pack of wolves is capable of this type of killing. I'm pretty sure it's not a hyena. There were reports that the animal or the beast could jump over high walls. Hyenas are physically not capable of doing that. I think it was a dog-wolf hybrid. I think the characteristics, the description of the beast matches that perfectly.
And the fact that there were bodies found that were decapitated, reclothed, and then the head placed back there. A wolf couldn't do that for starters, no animal could. So, yeah, men are behind it, people are behind this.
Okay. So who was controlling the beast?
I think it was a very dark time in history, and a lot was going on then. There are certain names that keep coming up over and over and over again through the story, that being the Chastels, a certain count of the area. And if anybody was involved, I think it's these guys.
And I think the Beast of Gevaudan will go down in history as one of the most successful serial killings ever.
So monster or murderer? What do you think? But that's not the end of the story. Because in different regions of the country, the killings went on. Throughout the 1600s and 1700s in France, close to 1,000 people, mainly women and children, were killed by mysterious beasts.
There was a beast of Indre, very similar. There was a beast of Valais, more recently, probably a wolf. But sneaking up on us, there was the beast of Vivarais, which behaved very similarly to La Bête.
If the Chastels and the Count de Moranges were responsible for the 300 or so deaths caused by the Beast of Gevaudan, who was responsible for the others? Were they victims of monsters or murderers? Maybe we'll find out in a future episode of Animal X. There are stranger things in heaven and earth, and you've just seen one of them on Animal X.